You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punklottopod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we assign our guests a year and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year for us to talk about. Today's a little bit different. This was actually the result of a Patreon raffle that we did. So basically, every patron that we received over the month of June was entered into a contest to win a free $10 tier, so where they basically get to choose what album we talk about. So our winner today was our patron Brian, and he has selected a pretty fun record. What are we talking about?
We are talking about the 2002 album The Illusion of Safety by Thrice. This is their second record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually do talk quite a bit about the year 2002 and some of the stuff that was going on then, so it's kind of exciting little dig down on that year. If you want to be a patron, you can head over to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/punklottopod. For $1, you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. This week we're doing a News of the World, where we kind of just like talk about stuff we've been up to and some bigger news stories and music. And as well as every Friday, we have a new release Friday audio where I do a little 10-minute where I talk about what came out that week. And if you wanted to be the person who chooses what we talk about on the show, that is for $10. And if you just sign up once, you'll get to choose what we talk about, and then you can just drop down to the $1 tier, or even just unsubscribe if you'd like. It's fine. We're not going to complain, and you can pick whatever you want us to talk about. All that stuff we can get at all the social medias: Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at punklottopod, punklottopod@gmail.com, and a voicemail line, which is 202-688-PUNK. Before we go too much further, I did want to mention something on the show. So if you follow us on social media, you may have noticed I posted a little bit about this, but North Carolina music has actually lost someone recently that was pretty important and a very vital part of our scene, especially in hardcore music and heavier music. John Rivera, who ran Head First Records, passed away last week, and he leaves behind a wife and a child, and he's had health conditions pretty much his entire life. He's basically been having to fight for different things over his whole life. So it was upsetting for a lot of people in the scene, considering how young he was. But he touched a lot of people in North Carolina music, especially. He was a very vital piece of hardcore music in the state. Head First Records, I'm trying to think of like everyone who has been through Head First Records. Young and in the Way, I think, is probably the biggest band, and probably the one that really grew out of John's like hard work. It's probably the ones who benefited the most. Torch Runner as well, Low Sky, Gut Feeling was members of Catharsis and Earth Crisis in there. Our friends and Totally Slow have put out albums on Head First, and just a ton of bands who were on that label. Excellent bands. There was even like an outpouring of like love and support for him when he passed away, from bands like Beloved and Code 7, who are like older bands in the scene that he didn't really put anything out by, but they all knew John. Was
very heavily involved in really the whole scene and helping to promote shows and coming out and supporting bands.
Yeah, he's when we were in a band, he came out to one of our shows. We didn't know him super closely, but like we've hung out with him on occasion and at shows, and he helped. He did our buttons for the podcast, the two buttons we did. He did those, and just he's always giving and always doing something for bands and people in the scene. And whether it was booking shows, going to shows, supporting artists, putting out records, doing merch, all that kind of stuff, John was a really big part. So there is a GoFundMe set up for his daughter and his wife, and to cover like cremation and funeral costs. So I'm going to include a link to that here in the show notes. It's pretty close to being funded, but any money that goes over, it's going to really go towards his daughter's future. You know, she's very young, so they're going to need that support going forward. But just a really good person, big part of the scene. And I know a lot of people were going to miss him. So I thought we should mention it. John Rivera. And hard to segue this into like, now go listen to this fun podcast. But I don't know. It's important. I wanted to talk about it. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Brian. It's a really fun one. Brian's been a good supporter of us for a while. So it was really good to talk to him. So enjoy the show. We are joined here today with a special guest. If you've been listening to the show regularly, you'll notice, know that we did a little contest on the Patreon where if you were a dollar member, you were entered to win a free $10. And that ran for about a month. And then I picked a winner. And we are joined here with that winner. We're here with Brian. Brian, thank you for being a patron of the show and joining us today.
Well, thank you for choosing me, sirs.
Yeah, I used just like a little like random name generator by like you just typed in everybody's names and then it like picks based on, you know, whatever algorithm it uses, and you popped up right away, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm happy that you got that one because you've been one of our earlier patrons, so we appreciate you for being along for the ride.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about what could I torture y'all with.
We've had a couple people say that to me, and they've yet to really like pick anything to torture us with yet. So somebody will eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah, I decided not to because like y'all messaged me. I'm like, you know what? I know exactly what I want to talk about. So we'll get into that in a bit.
Yeah. Your answer was like really quick too. That was really fun. And yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to it. So yeah, we've kind of been engaging with you on social media for the last couple years, actually. I was looking back at our earliest messages, and I think you DM'd us back in like 2020. And it was like right at the beginning of the pandemic where we had taken a little break. And you were like, hey, everybody all right? And like, yeah, we took a break just because, you know, the world's insane right now. But I think we'd been chatting in like the comments on posts for a little bit before that too. So you've been one of the longest listeners we've had. So thank you again for that.
Yeah. I discovered y'all because I typed in Sam I Am in Spotify and one of your episodes popped up. I'm like, whoa, someone's talking about Sam I Am? All right.
I would love to talk about Sam I Am again. That'd be a fun one to bring back.
Which one did we do?
We did Billy.
Billy?
Was it Billy? Yeah, it was Billy.
Yeah.
I know it's one of the pre-major label ones.
Mm-hmm, yeah. It was that is one of the cool things about Spotify. When you search for an artist, it does bring up like podcasts, which you'd think we'd get more like listeners from Spotify, but it's really like our third driving download source, which is interesting. I think it's just Apple dominated that for so long, like the podcasting world for so long, that's still like the number one way that most people listen to podcasts, and then the Android equivalent, which is, I'm not sure who that is actually, but yeah, the Spotify's third, which I guess that makes sense, but it's useful that way though. I definitely have done that thing where I just typed in an artist in like the podcasting app just to see what shows have talked about those artists, and it's not a lot. It's always a little, I don't know. For as many music podcasts there are out there, there are very few that like cover records that I want to talk about that I want to listen to people talk about.
I just listened to a 6-hour podcast on the White Album.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they did there were like 5 or 6 of them, and they were just going round robin on each track. That got me through a whole day of driving.
Oh, yeah. You're not the only trucker we've had too. We've had another one. I guess we can mention that you're a trucker. If you don't want me to say that, I'll cut that out. But
oh no, it's fine.
I had another trucker mention. He was like, I listened to 13 hours of the show, and I was like, oh no, why so many hours? He's like, I'm a driver. I was like, oh okay.
What's that? That could have been me. No,
somebody else.
It was somebody else. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize that I had 2 different Instagram accounts for a while. And I didn't realize, like, one was on my tablet, one was on my cell phone, and I didn't realize. Till one day my wife's like, why are you messaging me from one and then messaging me from a different one? What? Oh, shoot. I guess I'll fix that.
Yeah, that's weird. Let's see. I did want to mention, too, you are a musician yourself. I know you didn't really want to talk too much about it, but I thought it would be worth bringing up. You have a band camp as well, and I had the name pulled up a minute ago, and I've lost it already. Tell everyone what that band camp is called.
Well, I keep going back and forth on this, but currently it's The Static Failed. There's no reason behind the name. It's just stupid, like most band names, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's bandcamp.com/The Static Failed, I think. Something like that.
Yeah. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, and I'll play a little clip here if you don't mind.
So when the time comes for apologies, better not be asking me, for I have no fucks left to give. No fucks left to give.
You're doing some good stuff. I like what you're doing. I think you sent me a demo not long after we were talking. It was like recorded in your truck too, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah, it sounds bad, but hey, I'm working on it.
Hey, a demo's a demo.
Right.
But yeah. Well, cool. Let's get into the more traditional format of the show. So basic premise of the show is we assign our guests a year and they choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk adjacent album from that year for us to talk about. And since we did this as the Patreon, there's no year assignment on those. So the record you did select came out in the year 2002. So I thought we could at least talk about a couple of the albums that came out that year, albums that were of interest to you or us or important to music in general or overall. So, Dylan, why don't you take us away on 2002? What are you noticing that came out that year?
Oh, I can do this from memory. The 50 or so CDs I bought that year.
Yeah.
Huge year.
Looking at the records that came out that year, it's interesting. It's fun. It's kind of an interesting cross section or crossover year. I feel like definitely a lot of the metalcore, post-hardcore type of stuff that is in line with the record that we're talking about today, and would, these are some of the watershed records, I guess. AB Life by Me Without You, Between the Buried and Me self-titled record. There's a Used self-titled record, Alexis on Fire self-titled record, Killswitch Engage, Norma Jean, Bless the Martyr came out that year. So really significant debuts and self-titled records, and just big records for a lot of bands in that vein. But also
there's the last good
bands hanging
there's
around.
The last good or first bad Under Oath, depending on your opinion on them.
Yeah.
I remember there was a lot of debate on the message boards on that one. Like, oh, they suck. They went emo.
Yeah. It's funny. I literally just saw a meme about that too. Like, it's from that account. It's like, what is it? Ripped Girl? Is it Ripped Girl Jeans, Dylan?
Ripped Girl Jeans, yeah.
There's an Under Oath meme on there right now that's using the X-Men animated series as the.
Yeah, they do some good niche Christian hardcore memes.
Yeah.
So niche. But yeah, we're also in kind of like a big pop punk year. The Young and the Hopeless by Good Charlotte. There was a Does This Look Infected by Sum 41.
Newfound Glory, Sticks and Stones.
Let Go, Avril Lavigne.
Yeah.
And then there's your, there's your smart guy stuff that big Interpol record, Turn on the Bright Lights.
Yeah, your serious music listener.
That's an interesting one to mention because I bought 3 records on the same day. Which I originally wanted to talk about one of them. It was the Casket Lottery, Survival is for Cowards. I could have sworn that was a 2002, and I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's 2001. Okay. Yeah. But I bought that, Interpol, and the record we're talking about today all in the same day.
Interpol's the interesting choice out of those 3. Like, I could see a connection between the main album and the Casket Lottery.
I honestly had no idea who they were. Like, I knew who Casket Lottery and the other band was, but like Interpol, like the guy at the record store, it's like, oh yeah, man, this is it. This is the album of the year. I'm like, I'll check it out, and it was okay.
I like that you said the guy at the record store said this Interpol record is the record of the year. It was that guy.
Yeah,
pushing that record on everybody.
Yeah.
And you're right. I've listened.
I mean,
to it.
I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it, but it was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important because of what it does to indie rock in the 2000s, because it gets real. Indie rock used to be kind of like, I wouldn't say strictly lo-fi, but Interpol added like a sleek sound and production to indie rock that like kind of changed how most indie rock bands in the 2000s sound.
Some might say.
Plus, he sang like a vampire.
Yeah.
I
was gonna say some might say that indie rock used to be fun. And then Interpol came along. But
I say this about like everything. I'm like, the music hasn't gotten worse. There's still good music out there if you want to look for it and want to have more of an open mind. But yeah, some of it is bad.
I mean, it was definitely instrumental in the commercialization and the
right.
The sound of indie rock, or quote unquote indie rock.
The whole how is this indie rock when it's on a major label debate? Yeah, I get that.
Right. Yeah, how
did the Killers?
iPod commercial rock.
Yeah. Yeah, how did indie rock go from a tag to a genre, like a sound? Then when you say something's indie rock, it could mean like 20 different things too.
And I mean, that's not to say that it's Interpol's fault. Like, it's not.
No.
I mean,
they were on Matador, so at the time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, Matador was even though they had like distribution with a major label, they were still operating as an independent, much like Sub Pop and
right.
You mentioned like the 50 CDs that you bought in 2002. What are some other ones you remember from that year?
Oh goodness. I definitely got that Newfound Glory, Good Charlotte. Yep. I saw Good Charlotte with MXPX. And
Hell yeah.
They were really good live. And so I bought the CD, and the CD was okay, but then I still bought the second CD. I don't know.
Do you remember what year you saw MXPX?
Oh God, was that 2000? It was like, yeah, it was probably 2000.
Okay, so it would have been after
that first Good Charlotte CD was definitely out, so it had to be 2000.
Gotcha. Because like some of those Good Charlotte guys show up on the 2003 MXPX album.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I dropped off MXPX like shortly after that.
Yeah, I mean that record's bad. I mean, it's not good.
Which one?
They were trying to be.
Which one was that? The Ever Passing? Is it the Ever Passing Moment?
That's the one from 2000. Yeah.
Yeah, it was that record.
And that one's got some good stuff on it. Responsibilities.
And then you said they were on the 2003. I don't know anything after that. I think after that I was like, I'm kind of over pop punk.
Yeah.
I'm 21. Pop punk's not for me anymore.
You weren't wearing those Defend Pop Punk machine gun T-shirts that everybody had?
I actually did have a Man Overboard shirt, but it wasn't that one.
Oh yeah.
They had a shirt on their website on clearance for like $5, and it said "Fuck it, hang up." My girlfriend at the time's like, "You're wearing that on a date?"
Never underestimate a $5 T-shirt. I might wear a shitty shirt if it's $5. I don't know.
Right. But yeah. So what else did I buy? Like Poison the Well, Hope's Fall.
North Carolina band Hope's Fall.
I know I did not get the Between the Buried and Me, but I was talking to someone on an AOL chat room, and she sent me a bunch of North Carolina, South Carolina demos, and one of them was the Between the Buried and Me.
Wow.
I wish I still had some of those, because I have some, like, I used to have some rough mixes of some Hopes Fall songs too. And I remember when Satellite Years came out, I'm like, I still like this, but it sounds a little too polished.
Because you were listening to the demo.
Yeah.
I've done that before too, where I was like, whoa, wow, what is this? What do they do? It's like, well, they just actually recorded it in a real studio.
Yeah, it's
Right.
mastered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that at the time, but yeah. Like, wait, this sounds too poppy.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else? Definitely got the Used, Taking Back Sunday, which that was one that I was like, no, I don't. I like it. I don't know if I really like it now, or if it's just I've heard it so many times now that it's just ingrained in my memory.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But I remember at the time I was like, oh, this guy can't sing. What are they doing?
This is the Taking Back Sunday record that, like, that's like
Tell
the
All Your
classic.
Friends, the first one. Yeah.
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 And then the one after
I mean,
is,
it does have good songs on it, but it took me a while to get into his voice, I guess. I don't know if it's like Stockholm Syndrome.
well, yeah, because you bought the CD, so you had to make yourself like it.
Yeah, pretty much.
I spent money on this.
Let's
I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, you mentioned how
2002.
you weren't that into, who was it? And then you bought the next CD. I totally remember that.
Oh,
doing
Good
that too.
Charlotte.
The Good Charlotte. Yeah, it's like, yeah, this was an all right CD. They have a new one. I guess I'll buy it.
Yeah, pretty much. I thought, well, definitely you'll get better on the second one, right?
They never do.
Eh.
If you're only okay on the first one, and then the second one is not going to be better. I'm not going to like it more.
Let's see. Oh, there's so many to get into.
Yeah, so I've actually spent the last couple weeks. I do this thing where I just go through an entire year and just basically write down everything that I've listened to from that year. And so I pulled up a bunch of stuff too. I was like, wow, okay. I didn't realize that I bought 12 Stones and Audio Slave's first albums the same year, because I definitely had both of those CDs. It was definitely my exiting like mainstream radio rock and entering into more like subgenre era, hardcore, post-hardcore stuff. Dylan, you had the Chevelle album.
Did that come out that year? I'm trying to find stuff. I'm trying to find stuff that I got that year, and I'm not seeing stuff on the punk charts that I know for sure that I got that year.
You had the Chevelle record.
I need to look at Christian rock.
Yeah, the Christian rock stuff. I was trying to remember this. Did you have that Daily Planet record album? Or is that one that we just listened to in the store? Like Daily Planet Hero?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you have. Okay, yeah. And there's another one. What was it? Sunday Someday? Someday. What was their name? Everyday Sunday? Everyday Sunday.
I don't think I have
the one from that year.
I don't know which record that is.
It's them sitting in like a van.
There was a Sometime Sunday, but I think that was like early 90s Tooth and Nail.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's Sometime Sunday and Everyday Sunday, and they're both Christian bands. So,
well, of course it's Sunday.
Well, yeah,
it's the Lord's Day. Oh, Dylan, you bought Cutlass's first album.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And you know what?
Creed.
I didn't. So I don't think I bought that one. I think I was gifted that one. I did buy the second one, which is worse.
Don't worry. I bought a Pillar and a PAX 217 albums that year.
Yeah, you definitely had the Supertones record from that year as well.
Yeah. Though I also had some good ones. I had Project 6's Truthless Heroes and Blindside's Silence. Like, those records are still good, I think.
I was listening to, this is like total tangent, but for some reason, and I haven't touched it since, but I made a big playlist of post-grunge stuff because my brain was just like, is there something there? There's nothing there. There's something there. I don't know. Not enough for me to care about it 2 days later, though. So But I put that Truthless Heroes, that Project 86 record on there, and something from that record came up, and I was like, that's a good chorus.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be that good.
There's a couple good choruses on that record. I mean, they did have a pretty big producer working with them, that Howard Benson guy.
Yeah.
Who did the Blindside record and like the POD albums too. And
Was there a POD album that year?
no, but because they did Satellite in 2001.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's what I was thinking of. Okay.
So they would have been touring in
But-
2002 on that album.
Oh yeah, you definitely heard that record, those songs from that record on the radio all the time in 2002.
I bought that CD.
Yeah, I did too.
I was still like, and we'll get into this with the record, but I was still like in between my junior high school grunge punk stuff, and then like towards the end of high school, I started going to a youth group and discovered the whole Tooth and Nail stuff. So I was like kind of on the decline out of that, and then rediscovering like punk and hardcore. And it's funny, like all the Christian stuff brought me back into that. And I was like, oh, well, I don't need this other stuff anymore.
Your trajectory sounds very similar to ours.
Yeah.
I think we maybe went further back with like the Christian rock stuff earlier, but
Yeah.
it was definitely like Tooth and Nail being very instrumental into us getting really into punk and hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Thinking of like actually like kind of like cred punk records that came out that year, we have Reinventing Axl Rose by Against Me. We have a later Avail record, Front Porch Stories, Process of Belief by Bad Religion. We've got, let's see.
Yeah, this is a pretty significant kind of solidifying year of orgcore.
Situationist Comedy by Dillinger 4, The Distillers, Sing Sing Death House. Like, cool stuff.
There's a Lawrence Arms record.
Yep. The Just to Brazil, Perfecting Loneliness. The Latterman, Turn Up the Punk, we'll be singing. Lucero's Tennessee. Yeah, it's definitely like 2002 is very melting potish sort of when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because honestly, like we joked about the radio stuff, but like there's a Saliva record that came out that year, and I'm like, yep, if you would have turned on the radio in 2002, you would have heard click, click, boom, or and then like if you were watching like wrestling at this time period too, it was all like big butt rock, hard rock groups and new metal. And this is the year before Evanescence, I guess.
Yeah.
But the 12 Stone song was out that year. Yeah.
So was there a Living Sacrifice record that year? Or was that the year before?
There was actually. It's
Was that the Hammering Process?
No, it was Conceived in Fire.
Yeah, the final record.
Yeah.
The one that they were planning on being their final record for a while.
They always say that.
Right. Yeah, it's
let's see. I almost wanted to talk about the Get It Kids record, and I started getting back into that, or started listening to it again this year, and also listened to Matt himself talk about it, and he's like, yeah, there's like a couple good songs, but for the most part, we didn't know what we were doing anymore. And I listened to it, I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree. There's a couple songs that are just like, but when the good songs are really good, and the other songs are just kind of there.
Is that the acoustic-y, like the folky one? Or is that Guilt Show?
Yeah. It's a little more. Well, he said they wanted to do something more roots rock sounding, which I guess I kind of hear that, or trying to channel the Beatles, which a lot of bands are trying to do that at the time as well.
Yeah, Oasis had a record that year, and they were definitely. I think that's probably when they did their biggest Beatles push too. Yeah, I dove really deep on 2002, so like I've got a lot of reference points now for it. I will mention
it's a Tragedy record. Shout out to Brandon.
Yeah. I did want to mention that Brooklyn Vegan this week posted a 35 best emo and post-hardcore albums of 2002. We mentioned a lot of them on here, but the one we're talking about today is actually on that list as well. Pretty high up there too. I think you said it was like number 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
And looking at it, 2002 is kind of the year that is, it's another like kind of shape of punk to come. It's kind of this like, these are a lot of the first or second records of bands who were about to become gigantic and kind of really pushing what the scene and like overall like underground scene is going to look like. Notably, My Chemical Romance released their very first record, which we actually did an episode on a while back. I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. Better than expected. We've also covered another 2002 record, Hot Rod Circuit, Sorry About Tomorrow. Coheed and Cambria released... Sorry.
No, it's all right. That's another one I bought that I never could get into. I mean, it's not bad. It just wasn't for me.
Yeah, we did... When we did that record, it was another one where I was like, I get what people see in it, but I also didn't really personally connect to it too much. Like it's a solid record that I just don't personally have a lot invested in.
Well, I would say I didn't get what people see in it, though that it's not bad. Like
Right.
I was like, it's fine, it's listenable, but yeah, I didn't see what the thing is about that band, because that band is like almost hallowed. Like the way that people talk about them, they just have a small but very vocal fan base, I guess.
I don't even remember anybody talking about them back then. I only bought it because it was on Vagrant.
Yeah.
I was also one of those that's like, oh, Vagrant put this out. Well, it can't be bad.
Right. One that I wasn't really listening to it in 2002. I would pick up a couple years later, but one that probably to this day is like one of my favorites of the whole year is Coheed and Cambria's Second Stage Turbine Blade, which is the first Coheed record. I like the second one the best out of the two, but this is probably my second favorite.
But when that came out, though, it blew everybody's minds. Like, what is this?
Yeah, because it was like prog emo. What is this?
Prog emo, hardcore metal.
Yeah,
Rush.
And it's just kind of funny how far they went from there too. Like they put out a record this year in 2022.
I still haven't listened to it, really.
It's very
I listened to a couple songs, and yeah, that's what I got out of it. I was like, I don't know if I'm in the mood for this right now, and I'll get to it.
And then I guess we could mention Piebald, We Are the Only Friends That We Have, who they just announced that they're playing that record in its entirety at Fest. So I'm pumped for that. And I missed what number one is because the page refreshed. Oh, well, I think it was Taking Back Sunday.
Probably. which I think is, again, it's like nostalgia, whatever. I don't know. I don't think that should have been number one, but that's just my opinion.
I'm not a big TBS fan.
I've never liked him. I never will. I just
used to do a mean impression of him, though.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We've danced around it. Let's actually talk about the record that we are talking about today. So this was released in 2002. I didn't assign you the year. You just picked it straight away. But it is The Illusion of Safety by Thrice. Stats on the record. Thrice are from Irvine, California, and the band formed in 1998 while the band was still in high school. This is their second full-length album. It was released February 5th, 2002 on Sub City Records. Subsidy was a sub-label of Hopeless Records, and this is actually yeah, that's probably why it's called Subsidy.
Yeah.
It's the only Subsidy record that came out in 2002, but Hopeless that same year also released Common Rider and Mustard Plug records. It wasn't a big year for Hopeless, but weird that they had more ska than anything else. But the personnel on this album is Dustin Kinsrew. Is that how we say that name?
Yeah, that's how I've even heard him pronounce it. Dustin Kinsrew, yeah.
On guitar and vocals, I don't know this name either. Tepe Teranishi. Yeah, on guitar. Riley Breckenridge on drums and Eddie Breckenridge on bass. And the record was recorded and produced by Brian McTiernan of Battery and now Be Well at the Salad Days studio, which, interestingly, the same year that Brian McTiernan recorded this record, he also recorded Hot Water Music's Caution, Hot Rod Circuit's Sorry About Tomorrow, Snapcase's In Transmission, as well as a handful of other releases, most notably to me, the 2 Corn on Macabre EPs that came out that year. Interesting. Big year for Brian McTiernan. And I got other stuff we can talk about a little bit later. But so first thing I like to ask is, what made you choose this album for us to talk about?
I feel like, because you mentioned The Shape of Punk to Come, I feel like this is that record of the 2000s, because they were coming. The album before was more skate punk kind of sounding, had a little bit of Metallica worship. Actually, I should say probably a lot of Metallica worship on that record. And then this one, it kind of starts off continuing that, and it just starts going more experimental at times. And yeah, it was definitely my favorite of that year.
Yeah, you like I said earlier, you did not hesitate to give me this record as what you wanted to talk about. Was it just that you wanted to know our take on it, or?
A little of that, and a little of I felt like nobody was really talking about them, and still like nobody talks about them. I feel like, and we can I know we discussed in chat why, but I wanted to talk about it on air too. Yeah. Like why they don't get talked about as much, because while I don't necessarily like everything they do now, I still feel like there's some interesting stuff that they do. And I can trace it back. Like I can trace all those sounds back to this record. And I played it with, I played the record for my 15-year-old son, and I played some stuff they're doing now. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I can hear like there's little glimpses of what they want to do later. Like there'll be some ambient keyboard parts or some spacey, proggy, off time kind of stuff.
Dylan, let's walk through your Thrice history, your Thrice story. What is your experience with Thrice prior to listening to the record for this episode?
I have only ever been kind of a passive Thrice fan. I didn't get into them, and I wasn't aware of them until Beishu, which is, I guess, kind of like the big record. Probably their biggest record in terms of like commercial success, if I had to guess.
And a lot of people hated that record.
and it came immediately with like, yeah, they used to be better. Like it was like my introduction to them was that record, and like probably like a music video for something from that, Image of the Invisible, I guess, probably being like that song. And they had the like Of Interest to Christians, like basically a Christian hardcore band, but not on one of the Christian hardcore labels. And everyone immediately being like, yeah, they used to be better. This record sucks. And I'm like, I don't care about it. I don't care about this record. I'm not interested enough to go back. But I think then we came across, I don't remember why, but for some reason we came across Artist in the Ambulance, the next record after this one.
The sellout record.
Which I guess it is the sellout record. It definitely interested me way more. So, and I remember listening to that one and being like, wow, I actually really like this, and listening to it a lot, but then really never exploring their discography in depth outside of that record. And then they did I remember them doing the Alchemy Index EP series, where they did like a Frotus cover. Which I thought was really cool. They did like an acoustic Frotus cover.
With Shelby's blessing. There's even I have it on vinyl, and there's a note from Shelby, and they're saying he did the song better, or they did the song better than I ever could. I'm like, wow, that's some big praise.
I don't agree, but
right. I mean, it's just an acoustic cover.
It's an interesting interpretation. Like,
yeah, it's really different too, right?
Yeah. Going into it being like, I know this is an acoustic cover. This is a weird band to try and interpret it on acoustic instruments, but they did it in a way that was like, that's actually pretty cool.
I would love to talk about that record too, but I guess we can do that another time. Because I feel like that whole section of that set, it felt like to me like, okay, they're out of ideas. They had a theme for each one, and I was like, okay, fire is heavy, that makes sense. Water's more ambient, that makes sense. Air is a little more breezy, calm, whatever. And then they get to earth, they're like, okay, we're just gonna do acoustic, but not acoustic. Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
And it's just like it didn't sound like they had a good idea of what to do with Earth. But anyway, back to this one.
That time period, though, like for that band, they definitely seemed like they were reaching, trying to figure out which direction to go. That's kind of the impression I get of that series of records, is that they were just like, let's try on all these different hats and we'll give it this like conceptual, packaging so that we can get away with it. And then see what people respond to.
When was their hiatus? Okay.
2011.
Okay. So yeah, they did a couple things after those Alchemy Indexes.
They did one of my favorite and then one of my worst, like back to back.
Isn't it weird?
Major Minor is a huge fan favorite. And when it came out, I was like, I do not like. That was the first Thrice record where I was like, I do not like this. But it's grungy. It does not sound like grunge to me. It sounds like a band that were again trying to find a new sound to carry on. And I don't know if it's a coincidence they went on hiatus, because I know he went to do the church stuff, and I don't know. I kind of feel like they were kind of hitting a creative wall and took a break.
I'll do my Thrice Thricery. It similar to yours. I knew the name Thrice. I think the first time I ever heard them was on one of those Warped Tour compilations. It's probably like the 2003 Warped Tour comp. I want to say that's the one. And it had a song off The Artist in the Ambulance. I think it's like track 2 or 3 on that record. But I didn't really think much of it. They're one of the, like, I filed Thrice and Finch in the same file in my brain. Like, they're the same band, aren't they? Because they have very short names and they're playing similar styles. Finch is a little
radio friendly Glassjaw to me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is a good comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always mixed up Thrice and Thursday.
Yep. Yeah, that's another one. Like just the short little one-word
they
bands.
Both signed Island. They both got dropped from Island the same year, and they both broke up the same year.
Yeah.
And Vishu was probably Vishu. I guess Vishu is the one that I heard probably next. Mainly because when I went to college, I was part of a heavy metal worship group called The Flame Within. And what we would do is we would get together once a week and we would just like play heavy music that had like you could interpret it with like a religious or Christian sort of slant. So it would be like some Christian bands, but then some not Christian bands that just had lyrics that could be interpreted as Christian. Because we did like a Soulfly song, and it was like, because the chorus was like, I let my soul fly free or something like that. I was like, that sounds like a gospel song almost, but weird. But the Cavalier Brothers, I guess there's a chance that they're from South America. They could potentially be Catholic, but
I do believe he is. That's one of many reasons stated of why he left Sepultura, is he wanted to do something more religious and the rest of the guys didn't.
Well, there you go. I didn't even know that Soulfly was intended to be religious, but we apparently were listening to it. But we did. We had a Thrice song. We had what is it called? The Image of the Invisible, or
Yeah.
the first track on Vishu. And I was like, So we would play the song, and then we would like in worship fashion, we would have like the lyrics projected on a screen, and we would sing along with it, quote unquote. And it was just because like I do still like the idea of what we were doing, because it was like we were the type of people who didn't really connect that much with just like traditional worship music. Like I was like, I don't want to listen to Sonic Flood riffs and want to be U2, like give me something different. And so that's why we were doing this. And I went and listened to that song, and I was like, I can still sing along with it almost. It's one of those, is like, I haven't heard the song in 15 years, but I knew it wasn't like I knew the word before it came out, but like I could hear every word of the song as it was coming out, like no misinterpreted lyrics or anything like that. So I didn't really get into the record though, weirdly. And it would be The Artist in the Ambulance that I would find a CD copy of at Goodwill. And that was my Thrice album that I was like, I like this. And it was the one I liked the most, but I also didn't really dig too far on the rest of their discography either. So it was like one of those records that you're like, I like it, but you didn't care to find out more type things. So
these two would be a weird starting point.
Yeah, right.
Or any record after that really would be a weird starting point, especially if you go back and get one of the first three records. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. So yeah, my first true Thrice album that I listened to probably from front to back would be The Artist in the Ambulance, and similar sounding to this album, but not quite. There's a little bit there. So
When Deadbolt to wake you from deja vu dreams. 4 in the morning, you know where I'll be. I run in red lights to sleep at the wheel. The sirens feed my nightmares. I just close my eyes and I'm already here. It's already too late. No, it's nothing but lies, but they sound so sincere. Find them to wanna hate, and she calls from the double, so the water is sweet, so the stream get in the darkness, if you know what I mean. And she calls from the double, so the water is sweet, so the stream get in the darkness, if you know what I mean. And I'm almost sure that I've been here before, that this is not the first time I stood in front of this door, with an overwhelming feeling that it's true to go in. But it seems this is a battle that I never could win. Right now, my true love, come from the hilltop.
you said this probably would have been your favorite record of 2002.
Yeah, so I bought it on vinyl, and I was driving an old 80s Bronco at the time, so I dubbed it on cassette with the Casket Lottery record on the other side. So I just listened to that over and over the entire summer, and whenever a friend got in my car, they're like, oh my god, this again? Shut up.
You
But
didn't
yeah,
do
so-
the tape adapter gimmick thing where you plug a CD player in and
Oh, I did, but I actually did not own this on CD. Oh, I don't know if I ever actually owned it on CD,
wow.
because
See,
I made a tape dub of it, and then my dad figured out how to hook his turntable up to his computer, and so I took a bunch of my records over there and ripped them all to CD. So that was the CD version I had, which is funny because after Deadbolt, there's a little piano interlude, and I thought that was the beginning of the next song. But when I finally did hear, or no, it was on Spotify, when I was like, wait, that's the end of Deadbolt? I thought it was the beginning of
Yeah.
In Years to Come, or I think that's what it's called.
it feels like the beginning of the next song.
It
Because
does.
when it started, I was like,
Yeah.
all right, here's the next song. Wait, it's still Deadbolt? What?
they start doing that. Like they'll throw in like little interludes in between songs that's why I feel like they start hinting at stuff they're going to do later. But they're like, no, we're still channeling the skate punk hardcore stuff. We're going to stick with that, but we're going to sprinkle a little bit of ambient and jazz and whatever else in there. So my history with them. Oh, we're ready for that. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So my history with them, I saw them. I was trying to remember which was first because I saw them twice that year with Further Seems Forever, Recover, and it was either Midtown or The Movie Life. I always got those two confused. But I also saw them with Brand New and Recover again, I think. Yeah. So I don't know which was first. But like both times, like Thrice was like the opening. I think Thrice was the opening band on both. And they just like murdered everybody. It's like, this band should not be opening.
They did a couple tours like that. I actually had those written down too. So that for the immediate album support for this record, it was with Anti-Flag and Against All Authority.
Yeah, I didn't go to that one.
It's a very weird, two very like weird punk political bands, and then Thrice in the middle there. Yeah, Further Seems Forever. They did a little stint with Face to Face, who have a record in 2002. And then after that, they would go on tour with Hot Water Music and Coheed and Cambria. So it was like all three of them on tour together, which would have been a really cool one to see. Hot Water Music promoting Caution, their, what do you call a Caution? The Sellout record.
Yeah.
When they
I guess you could say that.
When they stopped singing over each other. But
that's
yeah.
the only one I like. I'm probably the weird one.
Oh, really? Is that your only one?
That's the only one I like. Like, I've listened to others. I'm like, I mean, it's okay. I don't know what it is. Like, the older ones, I'm just not into. And then the more recent ones, I'm like, no. Just no.
I know Caution tends to be an entry point for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say most of those people get into...
What was the one before
records.
that? No Division?
The one before was...
Is that Flight and a Crash? Yeah.
Okay, I like that one. I guess I like that and No Division too. Maybe No Division was after. I don't know. But yeah. I've been a Thrice fan ever since. Even though I don't always like everything they do. But I started noticing a trend, like they would do one thing that's really awesome and then they'd never do it again. Like there's that guitar solo. I don't remember what song it is now. Maybe the Red Death. They do this really awesome guitar solo and then never again. But then they would start doing more structured songwriting styles, and then it started to turn into like every song was verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, done. I'm like, okay, well, that's disappointing.
I guess that's that major label influence, when you're putting stuff out on Island Def Jam, you kind of have to be like, all right, here's some hits.
We need a single.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I don't think they ever like had a hit really. I mean, I guess like you're talking about Image of the Invisible. I'm like, was that? I didn't realize that was that big. Because from my perspective at the time, everybody was like, nope, this band's done. When that record came out, like nobody liked it.
I don't know what they have that would be considered hits that aren't just fan favorite songs,
All That's Left was played a lot on the radio in Houston, at least. But that was it. And then it would just be like, it'd be like during the times where nobody's really listening, like during the day or late at night.
If you look at Spotify, Black Honey off of To Be Everywhere Is To Be Now Nowhere, it has 57 million listens.
You know why?
Why?
Seether covered it.
They did?
And so people, they did one of those Sirius XM shows and Seether covered it. And I really think that's why. Like, just people went back and listened to that. I don't know how I've always been curious how Spotify plays work. Because, like, if you click on it, does it count as a play? Or do you have to watch or listen to a certain percentage?
The way it counts for podcasts, it's like they break it down into like plays and streams, and like you get like you get something for just somebody pressing play on it, but then you get something else if it's like more than 30 seconds. It's weird. Like they break it down really weird. And
I never listen to the end of podcasts, to be honest. Like once they start
what you don't get is money.
Stuff, oh, well.
Spotify.
Well, yeah, I know. Even though I'm paying $15 a month, they can't give anything back.
Yeah. But so like the second most listened to song is The Artist in the Ambulance, which has 40 million listens. But then like it drops down to 11 million for Stare at the Sun, and then like 9 million for Deadbolt. So it's
Deadbolt just popped up this year. Like that song and the album, like, because I do listen to them quite a bit. So I noticed this. I'm like, oh, well, you can tell it's the 20th anniversary because this is suddenly charting.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Because somebody wrote an article about it, and then they went and everybody went and listened to it. Because there was like a Brooklyn Vegan article for this album when it was like the 20th anniversary in like February. So same guy who wrote that article wrote the top 35. It's that Andrew Sacker guy who writes like all the punk records.
Yeah.
Or reviews and stuff.
Isn't it weird that this record is 20 years old?
It does feel weird.
I still think it's weird that they chose Deadbolt as the lead and only single.
It is an odd choice.
They did that, and they did a video for Betrayal. Betrayal is a Symptom. They did a video for that one too.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
The Betrayal video is a like they're performing on a stage, but it's just them. Like you don't see anything but just the band playing. And then
that's
the Deadbolt,
same as the Deadbolt video, I think.
That one's like a live tour video where they're like there is a crowd for that one, the Deadbolt.
Yeah.
One, which I watched that video and I was like, this is just like the Darkest Hour, Hidden Hands of Sadist Nation video. It's like the exact same type of video. Yeah. In the Betrayal is a Symptom video, though, they're all dressed identical, meaning they're all wearing jeans and a black band T-shirt. And the band T logos, I forgot this era. They used to be so tiny on shirts.
Oh God, I know.
Just like,
but they were also like $5 shirts back then.
Yeah,
$5 band shirts. The name was really small, but you got what you paid for.
Right.
I mean, that was the like people didn't know how to do anything with Photoshop or with computers to design merchandise. So they were like, I'm sure the file was just like teeny tiny, like barely. I'm sure that was just the maximum they could print it. To make a screen and then
on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
That does actually make sense why they're all just perfectly centered chest piece little designs.
That's all right. In a few years, you get side print shirts.
Oh, yeah. In a few years, like the print is like from neck to like the tail of your shirt.
Yeah. All over 8-color print.
Yeah.
T-shirts. But you know what? Those shirts still weren't expensive.
Yeah.
I don't know how they were printing those shirts for as cheap as they were.
Direct to garment.
You do more than 4 colors on a shirt now, and people are like, I want $50 for it. It's a T-shirt.
There's a Thrice had a 20th anniversary sale, and they put up a hoodie for $75. You should have seen a backlash on Instagram for that. $75 for a hoodie. Nobody's gonna buy that, and it's still on there. I don't know how many people, maybe super fans, have jumped on it, but hasn't sold out. All the other shirts have.
I want to look at it. I want to see how basic the design is.
Hoodies have
I think it might be like my shirt.
Is it the same design?
Yeah, I think so. And this was $25.
Yeah, that sounds about what everybody charges now.
And it's one color, gray.
25 one color gray print shirt.
It says 20th anniversary. I was like, it's nostalgia.
Yeah. record, I was like, just the sound is nostalgic for me. Like this style of music, it's unique. Okay, so I was reading a lot of like articles where people were like, or there was like an interview with like Brian McTiernan where he was like, I didn't know they were doing too many different styles for me to figure out if this is going to be a record that I wanted to put out. And I'm like, really? Wasn't everybody doing this kind of thing?
I don't think, no, not yet.
Yeah, and I wondered.
That's why it's like this is the shape of punk to come, because like at that point, people were like, you had Glass Eater, you've mentioned a couple times, like they started incorporating screaming a little bit. There was The Beautiful Mistake. They had some screamy, but I don't know, just the way Thrice did it was different, because there would be like more melody and more quiet moments. And I'm sure like as a producer, you're like, okay, well, I gotta produce the metal hardcore sounds, but then I also have to produce whatever else they're throwing at me.
But it was, to me, I was listening to it and I was like, okay, I guess there were the bands at the same time who were doing like, because post-hardcore had been a thing for quite a while at this point. And so like the idea of like clean singing and screaming is kind of normal. And so I guess there were emo bands who were probably doing more of it. I guess it's the addition of like being also like a hardcore record on top of that with like metal riffing too.
Yeah. There is something very odd about the way you have these skate punk Fat Wreck drum beats that are almost like they're doing that, but then they're also doing like not like double pedal stuff, like really metal drumming, and then like, yeah, you mentioned Metallica Worship on their earlier stuff. Like there is this real thrashiness to the guitars, and a lot of the lead guitar playing is like really wild and showy and technical in a way that I don't associate with Thrice. From what I remember of them, it's not that they're not doing those chunky, grungy chords
yet.
I mean, there's a little hint of it, but it's not that typical like drop D, like, you know, barred riff kind of thing. It's a little more metal.
Yeah. There's like I read something that said they had some like Megadeth influence.
Yeah.
Which I could hear that on what like See You in the Shallows. There's like this little like kind of galloping guitar riff in there. There's a little bit of like kind of like that speed picking going on a few tracks too. Deadbolt has like a sort of metal riffs on there. But yeah, then they would also do like So Strange I Remember You has like a skate punk tempo, and like they do like these almost like Bad Religion-y like harmonies on a subtle dagger. But then that song also has like these Mediterranean riffs, like, and then like panic chords at the end of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something. Yeah, I was surprised early into the record. I was like, I wasn't expecting this to be so botch, Norma Jean, like,
oh yeah,
kind of riffs. And they don't do
Dustin
it like consistently
Paul's,
throughout the record. It just kind of like pops up in places.
Dustin has said two of his main influences were Screeching Weasel and Botch. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like kind of opposite ends. Oh yeah, Radiohead's obvious on the later stuff for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting record because like there's no moment on here where I'm like, I don't like this. Like I like just about every song on here. I think my personal weakest song on here is maybe Trust.
Oh man,
the slower song.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple slow songs where I'm like, okay, it's slow. I'm not huge into slow songs, but like,
fair enough.
They're not too slow, and then they also like do a good job of putting them on like faster or heavier songs around the slower songs, so you never hit this point, these like lulls really in the record.
I feel like the pacing of it is really good. It's like it's on the vinyl, the first side is all the heavy songs, and then the second side starts with A Living Dance Upon Dead Minds. I always forget the name of that song. So it's like my first time listening to it, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. This is exactly how they sounded live. And then I flipped over to the second side, and it starts with that weird 5/4 time. I'm like, wait, what?
It is pretty, yeah, you're right. It is like pretty like nonstop.
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that's Trust. That's in 5/4. That's a couple songs later. But yeah, like it starts like more more mellow, I guess you'd say. Yeah.
The B-side has the slower, softer songs on there. Like the A-side is like all heavy and fast songs. So that's interesting. They specifically, I guess if they were planning on they did vinyl back then, so they had to have had that kind of approach to the album, because it's not there. A ton of bands weren't doing vinyl in 2002, which is, I was surprised to hear you say that you bought the vinyl first.
Yeah. There was some vinyl, like it wasn't big, but like the record store I went to, like it seemed like they had everything on vinyl. And I remember I started coming home with vinyl. My mom's looking at me like, "Are those old records?" I'm like, "No, these are new bands." And she was just like, "What?" people are still putting music on vinyl. It's like, yeah, it's great. I love it. It reminds me of digging through my dad's old records.
Yeah. Which I guess, looking at like the type of bands who would have been doing vinyl at the time, it makes sense. Like the Fat Wreck and Epitaph bands, I think were still doing vinyl. I think hardcore never stopped doing vinyl until like metalcore really blew up. And then like your Botch has an anthology of Dead Ends, and Cave In has like a couple EPs that year. So like that, the Brown Pants Metal guys are definitely doing vinyl for their stuff. So yeah, Asian Man Records, like that stuff's got vinyl still.
I
Death Wish always did vinyl.
I think hardcore held on to vinyl because it's collectible. Because I feel like hardcore always had that collector mentality.
Mm-hmm.
For those nerds.
I got this 200, one of 200 7-inch, by so-and-so.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like the labels who started with vinyl who just never stopped it. Because it was also cheaper back then to do vinyl, I think.
Oh yeah, I paid for the 3 records I got. I think I paid like $30 for 3 records.
Yeah.
Now you might get one single record for $30.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, because vinyl might even been cheaper to produce than CDs at that point. Because the MSRP on vinyl was lower than on CDs. Now I don't know if that was just because people weren't buying as much vinyl, so you kind of had to set the price lower so people would buy it or not. But it also makes sense why so many like DIY punk bands would be able to afford vinyl. So
it was cheap enough.
Yeah,
it was cheap enough to do. I think at least cheap enough to justify doing it, even as a novelty, to be like this will sell because it's a record.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, how many early 2000s nobody crust bands were putting out 7 inches?
Yeah,
all the time.
Screamo bands with their paper bag record sleeves.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a couple of those.
Yeah, with like a
we had local bands that would buy pillow sheets, pillowcases, and sheets from the thrift store, and they would just like sew them up into little record sleeves.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's cool. Screen print a logo on there. You're done.
Yeah. Is this an album?
That's probably why it was cheaper. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I talked all over you. I was gonna say, is this an album that you revisited frequently?
I didn't for a while, and it was really this year that I was like, it's 2022. What was going on 20 years ago? Because I have that same thing. I have playlists of every year, and I just throw everything on that year, kind of going through it. And I came up on this record. I'm like, I hadn't listened to this in, at this point, probably 10 years. And I went back and I was amazed, like, versus everything else from that year, it sounds kind of fresh. I mean, there are some complaints with the production quality, but I'll get to that in a second. But it just sounds fresh, like somebody recorded it this year, especially with all the other bands kind of doing the same thing right now. I was surprised how well it held up.
One of the points when I said, like, isn't it crazy that this came out 20 years ago? I was kind of maybe not trying to get into, like, millennials being surprised that they're old. And more just like that this came out 20 years ago. Like, this is a really odd record to come out in the time period that it came out in, and what it does and the ways that there's stuff that you can tell is of the period, but then there are aspects of that I'm like, no one was doing that then. and really no one did that the way that they did it after. This
Including
has kind
them.
of, even them. Yeah, I mean, they did things on this record that they never touched again, and it sounds like, really, it just sounds. I guess I would say it's just a really ambitious record.
Yes.
And they were kind of just going for it in every way that they could. And I think that that's something that keeps it really fresh sounding and current. And not just current, but just, I think it just decontextualizes it. I feel like this is a record that could come out anytime in the last 25 years, almost, just because of how they're really trying with everything that they're doing on this record. Because nothing on this record sounds boring or bored or genre specific. Like, they're like, well, we're this kind of band, so we do this. And it doesn't have, going back to your point of everything that they did later being like getting into that song, that song structure, that pop song structure of verse, chorus, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, kind of songcraft and production. It sounds like a band that worked out all of the songs together.
That's why I still think it's funny they put Deadbolt as the lead single, because that's like 6 parts of a song. Yeah. It doesn't repeat anything. How is that a single? But then you have like See You in the Shallows. I think that's what it's called. I hate song titles.
Yeah.
But that song was, I think, the first time where they had more of a structure. And like, I was like, if this was a single, it'd be great. Like, why did they pick this? You said Betrayal is a Symptom. I think that has sort of a structure to it. But like the first song, Kill Me Quickly, like they go through like the entire mood of the record in one song.
Yeah.
It starts melodic and heavy, and then it goes into sort of the ambient experimental part, and then ends in what could be a chorus, and then it's over.
It's funny that you mentioned Betrayal as a Symptom and Kill Me Quickly. Like, those are the 2 songs too that I also felt like the closest comparison I could think of to them would be Boy Sets Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they were kind of doing the same thing, where they would be like, we're a little bit a hardcore band, we're a little bit like an alt rock band, we're a little bit, they weren't so much metal, but like a little emo band. Like, they did a lot of different stuff. And then they were even on like a major around this time too. So like, that actually that's like the closest to me of the way they write songs.
Did that record come out this year as well? That Boy Sets Fire? I know I didn't like that. I bought that because I bought that, like, everybody name dropping it. And I bought that record, and then everyone's like, oh no, that's not the record to buy. I'm like, oh, well, I just wasted $12.
So this year is between records. So after the Eulogy came out in 2000, and then Tomorrow Come Today was 2003.
Okay,
was it the 2003
one?
Yeah,
when they signed to a major, which I didn't really pay attention to. Like, oh, it's on a major label. Fuck that. I didn't pay attention to any of that.
Yeah, only because you're like kind of limited in where you were going to be buying music from anyway, and you were just like buying whatever that was around.
Yeah.
I also feel like majors were taking more of a chance on this kind of music anyway at this point.
Yeah.
It's just like, we don't know what the next hit is. Just put everything out.
I couldn't imagine like what the Island Def Jam execs thought when they heard Thrice and Thursday. They're like, wait, what is this? We're putting this out? What are we going to do with this?
This guy can sing? Can he?
I love Jeff. Bless his heart. I don't care for TBS, but I do love Thursday. Bless his heart. He gets better, I think. Or you just get used to his voice. I don't know which it is. He's just got a style and a charisma, I guess.
Yeah, they're an interesting band. Like, I've listened to Thursday records, and I'm like, weird that this was the band that kind of like got as big as they did.
I listened to an interview with him like last year, and he was talking about once they got signed to Island, like he was trying to make an effort to end that band. Like, he was done. He's like, I want to do like Reversal of Man, Page 99, and just destroy this band. And the rest of them were like, no, we need to write more melodic radio stuff.
We want to play music for a living and not just play basements forever. Yeah,
That's all right. He ended up doing United Nations and kind of got his way a little bit.
And he's kind of always done stuff. Like he's either like produced stuff, recorded other people. Like he's always wanted to kind of stay true to his roots, which is commendable.
So back to this record. So Brian produced this one and Artist.
Yeah.
And I even though like Artist sounds a lot cleaner and slicker, I still prefer this one, even though there's a lot of things, like if you listen to it really loud with headphones, which I do, you can tell it was recorded on a computer before anybody really knew about like sound canceling or any of that. So I don't know if you can hear it. Like you can hear like the computer buzzing the entire time, and you can hear it on the TBS record. There's quite a few records, like when there's a lot of overdubs, it just gets louder.
This is from that time period where, yeah, you're right. Like everybody was using like Pro Tools and stuff to record, but nobody knew how to use it yet.
Yeah.
So it was like, if you listen to an album from this era, it sounds very early 2000s, just production wise, versus like, I don't know, like a late 90s album or like a later 2000s album. Like they're like too quiet in places. I guess they hadn't quite figured out compression yet or what.
Well, there's kind of Pro Tools is from this time period, and that production style is really heavily associated with loudness and over compression. That's definitely true with like more pop oriented stuff. I think that there's something that happens with lower budget records from this time period where there's a lot of digital technology that's being used, and like the noise issues are not taken care of. Isolation is not very good, but at the same time everything is really isolated and close mic'd and overdubbed a ton, and everything is really stuffy, and there's no room. And there's really almost no sense of dynamics. I think that's probably like the thing that dates this record overall, is it's all very like close and tight and not quite compressed right for how it's mic'd, but definitely not recorded live. Like I feel like this one might have been recorded live, but I know Artist for sure definitely was not.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anything as far as like notes about the recording process with this one. There's
definitely overdubs, tons of them.
Yeah. There's also this the tone is interesting, at least on the first couple tracks. And I don't know if I just got adjusted to the tone listening to it, but there's something about the guitar tone, especially like because they've got them panned like left and right pretty hard, and the one that's like panned to the left, which I think is technically the lead guitar, it has this like tone on the first couple tracks that it's just like feels very it makes it feel one note almost. Like it's not, I'm trying to think of what monochromatic is, that like the word that you would, or like it's just like one sound, it's like they set up an effect and like a distortion level or whatever they wanted to, and they left it and didn't change it for the next song. I don't know if that stood out to anyone else.
I'm pretty sure they were both playing, if you want to get into gear, I think they were both playing through Mesa Boogies and on SG guitars. At least they were live at that time.
Yeah, that's definitely the tone.
Yeah.
It is
now they use smaller combo amps and very expensive boutique guitars.
Yeah, they strike me as that kind of band now.
Yeah. It was actually in 2009 where Dustin did some signature guitar, and I went to look it up, and it was like $3,000. I'm like, oh God, he ain't hurting for money.
Yeah, there's a slickness to everything they've done. What, post Vishu, I think that's, or
and
even
post Vishu is all post Vishu. Everything they did was pretty much in their own studio they built with major label money.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Why all feels the same, kind of. Everything that I've heard. Even their artwork kind of looks the same. Like, they're different covers and stuff, but they're just like, it's very much like, yeah, the same person designed all these album covers. And
they settled into, I would say that they settled into their aesthetic on Visu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very unified throughout their discography from there on, to the point where I can't really distinguish any of their album covers.
Yeah. Which, they're not the only band to do that. A lot of bands from this era have done that too, where the ones who like didn't break up, or the ones who only like took like brief hiatuses, like, and put out a lot of material, like a lot of them kind of were like, this is our look, this is our style, like sonically and visually, like this is what we're gonna look and sound like for the rest of our career. Like,
I think that's what just kept me invested in them all the years, because it was like they had a mission statement of, we're never going to put out the same record twice. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what they do next.
Yeah. So you're someone who has followed along with their career basically the whole time.
Since 2002, yeah.
So Dylan and I were talking about this. I don't know if it was on a Patreon or not, but we were talking about how there are a lot of bands from this time period who they set up a fan base and then just maintain and try and cultivate that exact same fan base going forward. Like, Coheed and Cambria to me is another example of that same type of band, where it's like, I think Coheed and Cambria has the most amount of fans they're going to have. And it's probably the same amount that they've had for the last 10 years.
I think I think it's the post, was it Rock Band that they were in?
Yeah. Yeah, they got a little bump with that.
They were probably at their height, and then their fan base dropped a little bit from there, but then has stayed the same.
And Thrice to me feels like one of those bands too. So, because honestly, like, as someone who hasn't really been paying close attention to what they've done in the last 15 years, it feels like our good friend Corey, he has a thing that he calls the world has never not needed this sound. And he's talking about bands who've released tons of records that most people didn't know came out. So, like, to us on the outside of the Thrice fan base, we're like, yeah, they probably have a couple more. And then you look and you're like, what? Why do they have so many albums? So, since you've been along for the ride, like, does it feel like you're kind of on an island, or is it more of a, like, oh no, we have a very active, thriving, like, fan base that I interact with regularly?
So I don't interact with any of their fans. But I do know they have a really big fan base. They even have a fan club called the Thrice Alliance. But I've never been a part of that. But yeah, they are one that somehow has thrived with just their core fans.
Maybe that's what it is. It's a fan club band. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Coheed feels like a fan club band. There's a lot of metal bands who feel like fan club bands.
It's like a franchise. People are going to follow that franchise.
Yeah.
Going
for
off
better
of
or worse.
this time period, I'm trying to think of bands. Demon Hunter. That's a fan club band for sure.
I'd say Under Oath is too.
Under Oath has post reunion for sure.
Norma Jean.
Norma Jean's a cover band.
Yeah.
I mean, how many?
Sorry, Corey, you're a great vocalist, but really, it's not even really Norma Jean at this point.
Yeah, we went and saw them when they did like that anniversary for Oh God, the Aftermath, and it didn't even sound like Oh God, the Aftermath, because nobody who's on that record is in the band anymore.
Yeah, I was like, I recognize these riffs, but it's not right.
It doesn't sound right.
The best part of that show was Scoggin coming out and doing.
Yeah. Doing Aaron Weiss's.
Yeah, they did Memphis.
Yeah. Yeah.
He did Aaron's part?
Yeah, he did Aaron's
really funny.
They did Memphis, but he did Aaron's part.
I saw Norma Jean the next year, and Josh was already gone. And I could already tell, like, there was a different energy. I was like, it's okay, but it wasn't what I was wanting.
Yeah.
At that point, I think it was already just the drummer and the two guitarists left, but the energy was totally different.
Yeah, and for a while, those were like the three kind of like key members, and then even they're gone too. I think like Is there
Oh, yeah,
anyone from Oh God left besides Corey?
No.
No, yeah,
Just
it's only
Corey.
Corey.
Yeah, it's his cover band, yeah.
The drummer decided to break away from Christianity. I don't even think he does music at all. I don't think he does music at all anymore.
Well,
I know he left Norma Jean to go play on the pre-breakup Under Oath album, and I think that's the last thing he ever did.
Yeah. He left. I remember him saying like he was leaving the band because he felt like it wasn't a Christian band anymore.
Oh, is that it?
I think that's what it
Maybe I got
was.
that mixed up.
He was like, we're not like a mission band anymore, which then he went and played for Under Oath, and I was thinking like, is Under Oath like a mission band?
No.
At that point, everyone already knew a lot of their dirt.
Oh
that
yeah.
had come out.
And
Hey, I got to see Under Oath for free because I was at that one of their big shows. They were playing with Fear Before, Hopes Fall. I forget who else. I think it was These Arms Are Snakes. But I had no idea. Like, all these bands are starting to blow up. And that show, like, sold out. I'm used to just walking up, buying tickets, or giving them $10 and walking in. But this was sold out. I was like, whoa, well, damn. So I'm just, like, I'm walking outside, talking to another friend of mine who's trying to get in, and no luck. And then we ran into Chris, the keyboard player. And he's like, you here to see the show? And I was like, yeah, it's sold out. And he's like, can you help us bring in some gear?
yeah.
So me and my friend pushed in some amps into the back door and stayed for the rest of the show backstage.
That's awesome. When did Scott? This turned into the Norma Jean podcast. When did Scotty leave the band? Was that?
I don't even know. I dropped off right after. The Aftermath.
He's on the Anti-Mother and Maradonal. Yeah, so that's the last one he did. And actually, to me, that's where they stopped feeling like the same band.
Yeah.
That record.
That is the stopping point, because I listened to Wrongdoers when it came out, and it was
party bro music.
Weird record. I was like,
we don't drink, but we party bro music.
This isn't the same band.
And he's part of that band Holy Gold now, which I've seen Holy Gold because I played with Zayo, and it was like, hey, this feels like old Norma Jean. And he was in Spitfire too, which I loved Spitfire.
Was it Spitfire or Esoterror? Or was it both? Probably both.
So Corey was
Spitfire.
in Esoterror. We learned that's how we say it. Corey was in that band. Scotty was in Spitfire. One of the other guys was in Scarlet, right? Remember them?
Yeah.
I forgot about Scarlet. Yeah.
Everybody did. There's a reason.
I like
Trust
Scarlet.
Kill, all the Trust Kill Ferret bands, yeah.
Yeah, that is what it was. Yeah,
they're just all the same band.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, we got on a Norma Jean tangent there.
That's all good.
Yeah, like
fan
club band. That's
pretty
the
much
term now.
relative. Yeah, fan club band. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, but it's like
band to have a fan club.
So that explains a lot, because I always wondered. I'm like, okay, well, I never really thought any of their records are really that bad, but I could see like, okay, this is for a particular person. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be putting out records, and they're on Epitaph, which is still a pretty big label, I think. So I'm like, obviously somebody's still buying. I mean, okay, I buy all their stuff on vinyl, even if
you're the problem.
I even bought the Major Minor reissue, even though I like 2 songs on that album. Yeah, I'm part of the problem, I guess.
You're the market.
Somebody's still buying this.
There's this guy. He's bought every single one of them. So let's keep it. That, which I imagine is like a majority of their fan base is just people who've bought them all for the last 10 years. You know, no growth, but no shrinkage either. It's just like dedicated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's the thing. Like, why Epitaph would still invest in. We're like, well, we know that if we press 40,000 vinyls, you're going to sell them all.
Right,
well, and it's non-expensive
because they probably not 40.
They produce all of the records themselves.
Yeah,
right.
And then they're also the type of band where it's like, well, we're going to do 7 colors for this record, and they have the type of fan base who will buy all the colors.
Yes. For the recent one, I got the transparent pink, which was released almost a year later.
See, I'm the same way. I just buy one. I don't need all the colors.
Yeah, I don't even care if it's black, really.
Yeah. Well,
just give me the black one.
Well, don't they say like hardcore audiophiles always say like black's the best sounding vinyl?
I don't think it matters, really.
Yeah, as long as your turntable's good, you know.
After
it's a negligible difference. Though I will admit,
I'm 41. My hearing's already slowly giving, so I can't tell a difference anyway.
I was gonna say I do think that white vinyl sounds the worst. I think it's
I've
softer.
heard glow in the dark.
Yeah,
I've heard glow in the dark's really bad. I did get reveal my shameful nerdiness. I just bought the first Ghost vinyl, and it's on like blue with glitter.
Yeah.
And it pops and it sounds really bad, but it's glitter.
Yeah. Well, like they used to say picture discs sounded really bad, but they kind of fixed picture discs, so now they don't sound as bad as they used to.
The biggest issue with picture discs are that they come in those clear plastic sleeves, and the clear plastic fuses with the vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple picture discs, but yeah, if it doesn't have like a traditional sleeve, I'm not a big fan of like that vinyl plastic sleeve.
Yeah, I hate the clear plastic sleeve.
I'm the throw away the paper sleeve type.
Oh, really? The insert sleeve?
I have rice paper. I don't know. I might have to resell them one day.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, but
yeah, gonna wipe out the collection.
Hey man, I can get a couple grand for my Thrice records alone.
There you go. I got a handful of things that you could make money on. Yeah, if I sell my records, it's going to be because I just want to get rid of them and clear the space in my home like that.
I need to do that.
Need to do a purge. I need to do a purge on comic books more than anything right now. So
I'm looking at 6 long boxes that I'm like, should I just sell all of these?
Good luck trying to sell them. That's the hardest part about comics.
Yeah.
Just
No
post it
resale
on
value.
eBay and let it sit there until you forget about it.
You gotta find like a Bookman's or
You
one
start
of
getting
those like
negative comments. Seller never responded.
Yeah. And comic eBay buyers they're worse than record buyers, I think, just because like you packaged it badly, and it's like I saw pictures of like the packaging, and I'm like, yeah, I guess it is just a paper thing though. Like it's really hard to transport.
you gotta buy
stapled together.
You gotta buy the
like
comic book
flattened
shipping.
between 2 pieces of sheet metal or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, the shipping's really high, but it's only because of weight.
Right.
I was looking at Thrice apparently does this thing where they donate proceeds to every album they record to a different charity.
I think that was only up to. I don't even think they did it with Beggars.
Oh, so they stopped after a point.
Yeah, I think the last one was Alchemy Index, and then after that, I think they acknowledged like we're getting diminished returns, so maybe not. But they would do like every once in a while they'll do like a special show for charity, and they'll do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, they did.
Like when Chain Reaction was still around, they would do like a big Chain Reaction show, and fans would fly all over, and.
So for this record, they did one for a nonprofit youth center in South Central LA called A Place Called Home.
Yeah.
So that was where, and then like students there got like, what was it?
Free Thrice merch.
No, they got some like scholarships to go to like a music school and like learn music theory was specifically the thing I read. I was like, did they want to? But okay. I don't know what, maybe that place is specifically like a music kind of school, but which I thought was cool. And they got the labels to match it. And then when they got even when they signed to Island, they were able to get Island to match the same thing. I
guess Vagrant wasn't able to.
Yeah. I looked at a little bit of the members and like, you know, Dustin and the other guitar player, which I'm blanking on his name because I'm not reading it right now. Tepe. He they haven't really done too much outside of like Dustin has solo material, but they haven't done too much outside of Thrice. But Eddie has played with Angels and Airwaves. He did it for like a year. I think he did like a tour.
He did like a couple shows.
And he has been in Knapsack since 2013.
Hmm.
So I guess he's like part of the live show touring thing. Or they don't really tour, but whenever they play
he's kind
shows.
of the go-to. He's like the go-to bassist for
Yeah.
veteran emo bands.
And he also played with Riley in a band called Less Art with our friend of the show, Ian Miller of Kowloon Walled City.
Oh.
And Riley also plays in Pwig Destroyer with Ian.
That's a weird thing to check out. Hardcore about baseball.
Yeah. Ian's weird because he's played with everyone. He's one of those guys who's like been in every band with everyone. So yeah, it was cool to see the Thrice connection there.
Les Art was that was also the vocalist from Curl Up and Die, which I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They were big for a moment and then never went anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew the name. I don't think I've ever listened to any of their stuff.
They were a post-Converge, post-botch kind of mathcore band, and they just didn't become one of the next big wave of mathcore.
Well, because we still had Converge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Converge is another one of those fan base bands.
Yeah, I could see that, but they also get the critical praise.
Yeah,
they get a lot of
that's
coverage.
True. That is true.
They get the coverage. That's the thing.
Yeah, I feel like Thrice doesn't get the coverage.
You see the press release, like you see that they're releasing something, but then I never see anyone like
review it
or
or talk about it.
Yeah, everything Thrice has like I think it was like 3.5 every record on Rate Your Music.
Is it all of them like that?
I think they're all like, or there might be some in the middle that are like a 2.9. So they're all like 3 to 3.5. I would argue that I would probably give The Illusion of Safety a 5, even though it does there are things about it that I don't like, but at the same time, I feel like that's the charm, like just little production things. But when I think of like a 5-star record, like there's nothing on here I hate. And I could listen to the whole thing constantly now. It's like, there's nothing on here I'd want to skip. There's nothing on here that just offends me or anything. Oh yeah. So I wanted to go back and talk about that because you mentioned like the Christian thing. Cause I knew Dustin was Christian. And it touches in the lyrics a little bit, but I never saw them as like a Christian band. I just saw it as like most bands always like talk about their faith to some extent if they have some. So I was never that bothered by it. But then I did notice like, especially around Visu, like more and more like Christian people would notice a Thrice shirt if I'm wearing it. They're like, oh, I love Thrice. I just wish they were more Christian. I'm like, no, I like them just where they are.
They're just fine.
I know Riley is not Christian. I'm not sure about Eddie, and Tepe might be Christian.
It's interesting that they're not a consistently Christian band. Like the membership of the band is not consistently Christian, considering that Dustin is, or at least was, very Christian, and like to the point of being involved in worship leadership at a very
That's
big
a story to look into if you haven't.
church.
Is he a Mars Hill guy?
He was at Mars Hill.
And he was one of the first to dip out.
Yeah.
He's like, nope, I'm done with this.
Was that the cussing preacher guy?
Yeah.
And he would like encourage he would encourage teens to explore sex, which I don't know. Like that's just why would you do that? No, what it was, he would encourage premarital sex for various reasons, but he would like try to hook people up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, that's not your place.
there is an entire, which I've heard most of it. I didn't listen to it, but my wife listened to it, and I actually did hear that like my neighbors were also listening to it as they were coming out. But there is a podcast, if you're interested, about the rise and I think it's like the rise and fall of Mars Hill Church, and it goes heavy into like all of the scandals. Mark Driscoll, suffice it to say, had the image of a cool progressive person, but he was not a cool progressive person. Was actually very
problematic.
very problematic, very heteronormative, and like very like man is the head of the household, and was also like a huge bully.
Yeah, I've listened to podcasts of it was like other musicians were like part of that church. Like is it Matt Johnson, is he one of them?
A lot of the Seattle, a lot of the Pacific Northwest, Jeff Suffering, from 90 Pound was involved, and all of those cool punk music people that got involved because they were like, oh, this is like Christianity that doesn't judge you, and then it very quickly became Christianity that does judge you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading, like Dustin said, he decided to end Thrice because the Mars Hill people were pushing him. They're like, look, you cannot be a Christian with this type of lifestyle. Like, you're touring with people that are non-Christian. You need to be among your brothers to be a true follower of Christ. And I think he hasn't stated so. I don't know if he's still religious, but he's definitely like not leaning on it near as much lyrically. In fact, there's no official lyrics for this line, but there's a line at the very end of one of their songs where he says, I'm sick of this shit. And he clearly, not clearly, it's kind of distorted, and he screams a bit. It was, what is that? Blood in the Sand, I think. There's a single from their post-hiatus album. And I swear, like, the very last line, it says, I'm sick of this shit. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you are.
Yeah, that would have been like right after.
Even with his like more Christian sounding stuff, he was always, I felt like lyrically it was always more social commentary versus like, hey, you need to follow God or else. That wasn't, I think Visu, he started leaning into that more.
Yeah, which is also around the same time that I remember seeing like people talk about them as a Christian band. And I remember being like, wait, what? No, they're not. Like, I have a really good radar of so like there's this thing, it's HM Magazine, which is like a Christian like hard music magazine.
Yep.
That
I used to read it.
One of their things was they called them artists of interest to Christians, and it would be bands like Paramore because Haley grew up a Christian, and Flyleaf because the lead singer grew up a Christian, and like the bands who were never like explicitly Christian, but there was like one key member who was like known for being a Christian. And I always remember when I would see Thrice in there, I'd be like, Thrice? I don't know. I don't think so. Like Paramore was the same way. I'm like, that's not a Christian band. Like they're not.
I think that's why they didn't get as big, is because they're a safe band. Like they're none of them. I don't think any of them do drugs or drink or anything, even though I've always wondered, because Dustin does sometimes sing about like drug use but not like he did it. What's the line? Two friends stab you in the front when one more fix could kill you, or something like that. And I'm just like, is he singing that from what perspective? Like he knows one more fix could kill him, or is he singing to a friend?
Yeah.
I've always wondered, but he just, I don't know. I guess they were just kind of a safe band. And then you would have the more problematic bands that would end up blowing up.
Yeah.
Not naming any names, but you know. Specifically a band they toured with a lot. And I'm sure they're now like,
Oh yeah. Yeah, but a lot of people are about that band.
So I always like felt that like they're too safe. And so I guess people are like, oh, well, they're just not rock and roll enough.
That and like nobody cares about guitar-based music anymore.
Well, not in the pop sense.
Yeah,
but it's there. People are still trying. I don't know how popular they are, but I noticed a lot of like 90s indie emo post hardcore people are starting to pop back up. a lot of super groups. I'm trying to think of some. Attempt Survivors has like Joshua English from 6 Part 7, and there's some other people, and they kind of have like that Jawbox. I'm blanking on the name. Shudder to Think kind of sound, which I think is funny. Because I'm like, Shudder to Think is a band. How is that signed to a major label?
Sony? Epic? Yeah, Epic.
Yeah, Epic. And that was part of the Nirvana hype. Like, we need the next Nirvana. Let's sign every Discord band.
Yeah.
Like, Jawbox could have been huge. I don't know why they weren't, but whatever. But, like, Shudder to Think, no. I could never see them being a...
Shudder to Think could not be huge. I don't know why that was a decision. Let's see. Well... I guess the last thing I have in my notes is that the album peaked at number 14 on the Billboard Independent Album charts and at number 20 on the Heat Seekers chart. So this record did well.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess there's your entrance to Island.
For a subsidy that was a subsidy of a hardly known label.
Yeah, which I wonder if Thrice is part of the reason why the label got bigger. And they started chasing more like emo and stuff like that.
I think the story was like, because Hopeless is an LA label, I think, California, right?
I'm not sure.
Because I do remember, like, I had a DVD that came out after Artist called If We Could Only See Ourselves Now. And they talk about how they shopped it to Fat and Epitaph and Equal Vision and Vagrant, like every label, and like nobody was interested. They're like, here, you need to pick one. You either need to be melodic or you need to be heavy. You can't do both.
Yeah.
And eventually that's what made them big.
Yeah, Hopeless is a Van Nuys record label.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, back
yeah,
the Valley.
Yeah, and then I guess Avenged Sevenfold being an all-time low, or probably the other. Oh, and Yellow Card. Wow, they actually had a lot of them. Taking Back Sunday, Silverstein. Okay. They had a lot of big bands. They just all blew up at the same time.
Taking Back Sunday was on Hopeless? I did not even... Oh, that was later. That was much later.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. Because it mentions Neck Deep, and I'm like, yeah, there are newer bands. Yeah. That's
the post-reunion TBS that did not sound like anything anybody wanted. Like, oh, all the original members are back, so let's just not sound like Tell All Your Friends at all.
Yeah. Members are back, but we didn't want to sound like the original band.
Yeah.
Well,
I was surprised it did that well.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious how Artist did, but I'll look that up on my own later.
I think it did pretty well too. I think it probably sold more just due to being on Island.
You want to talk about something dated? Go look at the music videos for those singles from Artist. They're pretty bad.
Charts. They they're number 1 on the US top internet albums list, whatever that was. And number 16 on the Billboard 200. So that's pretty good.
Oh, wow. All right.
So it did well. Well,
I guess it didn't even go gold. Well, but not gold.
I don't know. I mean, I bet over time it may have. I don't know. I don't know how you find that stuff. 100,000 copies and sold 47,000 copies in its first week. Sold 391,000 copies by July 2006.
I know what attributed to the so high numbers for starting week. So they had they had 3 different versions, I think. So they had the regular jewel case version, and then they have the version that I have, which is like a cardboard sleeve, and each page is a card, and it would have lyrics and notes from them talking about what the influences were.
The
and
one
then
I
had
have
the fan club edition. Yeah, then they have the fan club edition, which has additional cards with deeper info and playlists, which was funny. They had playlists back in 2003. It's like, okay, where would you get a playlist? Oh, you just burn your own CD, I guess.
Yeah, you had to like go get the songs too.
Hey, Napster was still huge.
Yeah.
I don't think Napster went down yet.
Well, I think I have hit the end of my notes as far as this record. We've talking for a good little bit here, so it's probably a good point to sign off. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And picking this record for us. It was a fun one.
Absolutely.
I forgot to ask you this in advance. We typically ask our guests to shout out a charity or a nonprofit. Do you have one you want to shout out?
Absolutely. So my wife and our neighbors around the corner, they run a nonprofit in our city called PTX Diverse, Princeton, Texas. I'll send you the links for all that. But they mostly deal with like diversity, colored folks, LGBTQ plus, all that. Mm-hmm. And we've been getting a lot of backlash from the city. They don't like it. How dare us be inclusive of everybody?
Yeah. I actually found the link here, so I'll make sure to include that in the show notes.
Yeah, we do food drives, we do clothing drives. We also like I think they started doing something where like if you feel like you're being abused or whatever for who you are or whatever, like we have like I guess you can just message one of them and let them know, and we'll find a way to help you out of that situation if it's a bad situation.
Like a support network type thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you got classes and everything. That's cool. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yep.
Well, cool. I'll make sure to include a link to that in the show notes. And
financing classes, how to pay your bills, all sorts of stuff. I see stuff all the time like, oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, that's exciting. Well, good. Brian, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. And thank you for being a patron and a listener and all that good stuff. And always being one of the voices I can expect to see a comment from.
Long time listener, first time caller. Yeah. Not the last time. We should do this again. I'll find something next year.
Yeah.
This is WJZY TV 46 in Belmont, signing off another broadcast day. Join TV 46 at 6 a.m. for more movies and more entertainment on Charlotte's only independent station.
Good night, good night, good night. It's time to say good night. Good night, good night, good night. What more is there to say?